I'm up at gutter level, and this morning I wanted to just check in on the gutter guards. What we have over here now is 6 different gutter guards that we've installed. I'll walk you through each one of them. We're now on the south side of the garage. So if you look up on the roof, you can see that there is no algae, there's no lichen, there's no moss growing on the roof, or at least there's very, very little of it. I guess in fairness, there are probably a few spots and cracks there that stay a little bit moist. And if there's an abundance of it anywhere, it's here above the MasterShield product. And that's simply because I have an apple tree that is sitting right up against, that somebody planted, sitting right up against the gutter line here, so it provides a little bit of shade in the summertime. I may trim this tree back a little bit, but on the other hand, if it creates a little bit of a moss situation here, I'm showing you the MasterShield right now. You can see the 3 strips of copper. So I previously mentioned that the copper is designed, it's copper as a metal, as an antibacterial, so it'll prevent the buildup of any algae, lichen, and moss on the screen. At least that's the theory behind it. So the fact that both on the north and the south side we've got a little bit of moss above it, maybe just fortuitous in our effort here to kind of prove that theory out. So again, this is the MasterShield. It's designed to slide up under the first course of shingles, so that's how we installed it here. We created end caps at both sides to keep any of the leaves and debris out, and that's true at the opposite end as well. It hooks onto the front lip of the gutter, and it is solidly in place. You push down on that product, and it's just as solid as any other metal gutter guard out on the market. Here is LeafFilter on the south slope of the garage. So again, there's very little organic matter or debris up there. There's a little bit of moss on the roof, but since this is a south-facing slope, you're not going to be subject to the same moss, lichen, and organic matter debris issues that you're going to have on the north side of the garage. So as you can see here, the screen's a little bit cleaner. At this point, there's less debris on the roof to bring down, so it is performing as you would expect. Now, in fairness to any of these products, we just installed these yesterday, so these have only been up for not even 24 hours. I think the primary difference that you'll see between LeafFilter and any of the other products is that it's designed to install within the gutter. So you can see here it screws down on the front lip. It goes to the back edge. So this is a 6-inch gutter with a 6-inch version of LeafFilter installed on it. The difference between the 5 and the 6-inch version is the amount of plastic at the back. So that piece at the back for a 5-inch is just a little bit narrower than what you see here. In my case, we've got a drip edge up on the roof, which is what you should have. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more roof systems today installed without drip edges, and there's good reason to have a drip edge, but if you don't have it, whether you have it or not, then this particular gutter guard is going to install within the gutter, and it just sits loosely on the back side. So it screws down on the front lip, but because it has that plastic upward flange on the back side, you can't really screw through it with any certainty that it won't just crack that back upward flange off. So the best bet is just to let it sit flat or let it sit loosely back there and hope that either the drip edge in this case or the shingles in other cases sit down far enough that it'll hold it into place. Now, one of the things that we found with this product over time, or not even over time, but depending on kind of the clearance between the shingle and the gutter guard, was if it was sitting loosely inside there, nothing was really holding it down on the backside in a good wind. And we've got a little bit of wind today, it's doing fine, but in a good wind, it might flap around. So it had more of a tendency to kind of go up and down on the backside, and it would make that kind of a noise, which could be kind of annoying. But again, we have installed this the way that LeafFilter does today. And if you just kind of look at this versus the MasterShield at the other end, which is the more recent version of LeafFilter, the newer invention, you can see the slope difference between the two here on this 12-12 pitched roof. This is the GutterGlove panel. The history behind GutterGlove is it was I don't want to call it a knockoff, but it was a near knockoff of the LeafFilter system. Like LeafFilter, has a screen that goes over the top. It was caulked into place. This one actually doesn't appear to have any caulking in it, or that caulking has been. Let's see. There's caulking on the back, but not necessarily on the front. So I don't know if that just wore away from the elements, because the panels that we used to test in the earlier days had a bead of caulk both across the front and the back. However, I do think they modified this design. You can see this one has a bit of a honeycomb layer between the metal framework and the screen itself, so that helps kind of raise the screen up off the metal. But I think it also acts as a little bit more consistent surface area for the screen. So the key with certain products, such as a GutterGlove Pro, is that the screen touches a framework behind it. That framework creates a downward draw. It essentially siphons the water through. So I believe what they've done from when this product first came out until present is that they've added this little honeycomb plastic layer right here in the middle, above the metal framework and below the screen that you can see extends all the way across the gutter guard. This is a very fine screen, so this screen is comparable in opening width to LeafFilter and the MasterShield product. So there's a picture of LeafFilter sitting next to it. You can just see from a installation perspective, you can kind of see the difference where because it goes up under the first course of shingles, it's going to have a little bit better slope than, say, what LeafFilter does, which sits flatter inside the gutter. So the GutterGlove is we're only testing it here on the south side. The reason that I'm testing it, I don't see this product as much as we used to. I think the fellow who developed it has found his mark by selling products at a more of a DIY level than at a professionally installed level. And while this product still exists, and while I do believe they've brought out a version of it that is newer than what we have here, this will give us a good representation of the product in general. And if we can get our hands on a newer version of it, then we certainly will do so. But in the meantime, this is what we have. And again, it's an aluminum framework, but unlike the aluminum framework, say, in the MasterShield, which is a roll form aluminum, so kind of the same material as what your gutter would be, this is actually an extruded aluminum, so it's a thicker gauge aluminum. And here, if you look on the side, you can see just how thick that aluminum really is. Now, my opinion always was that it was overkill to have such thick aluminum. They used to, back in the day, they used to have a picture of somebody, I think, driving a car over it. And, you know, when's the last time anybody drove a car over top of your gutters? If somebody's driving a car over top of your gutters or your gutter guards, you've got bigger problems than whether this gutter guard is going to keep leaves and debris out and the occasional stick or tree limb that falls off of a roof, so, or off of a tree. So very heavy gauge. I mean, there's no give to this product. In fact, I had to get a different blade for our saw. Most of these products we can just cut with tin snips. The LeafFilter product, in order to get a nice clean cut and not to aggravate yourself to death, you have to use a chop saw with just a standard blade on it. Well, with GutterGlove Pro, we have to not only use a chop chop saw, but we have to use a chop saw that has an aluminum blade on it, and you have to gently cut through it. So from an installation perspective, this one is a pain in the rear. From a durability perspective, it's certainly the strongest one on the market. Let's see how it performs as a gutter guard, which is really what its intent was. This is LeafLock. This is a product that we actually offer for sale and installation. I talked about it on the north side. We here are on the south side, so just a little bit better perspective on it. You can see that it gets screwed down on the front lip with that aluminum framework on the front. You can also better see here the ribbing inside the screen itself. So the screen is essentially a series of undulations that kind of go up and down to create these channels that the water flows down when it comes off the roof. So, kind of all, this is all stainless steel screen on the screen itself, and then whether you have a 5 or 6 inch, it has the same screen opening. It's a 3-part system, so you've got the framework here on the front, you've got the screen in the middle, and then you've got the piece in the back. So as I mentioned before, this can be installed either within the gutter, so it screws on the front lip, screws to the fascia board, or we can slide it up under the first course of shingles, which is what we've done here. We'll see how it works over here on this side of the house. So again, we had a heavy rainstorm last night. You can see that, other than a few shingle granules on it, it's all clean at this point. One of our installers has installed this product before, and it's a product that he likes. So I thought I would feature it here. You can see it's also a 3-part system, so it has a thicker channel, a thicker framework here across the front, screws down on the front lip of the gutter, and then the panel slides up under the first course of shingles. It's got a pretty rigid, kind of thick screen on it. I assume it's stainless steel, but I'm not sure. It's because it's a little bit thicker, I'm just not exactly sure what that material is. But you can see it's got an interesting design to it. So the idea with that design, because it's actually raised ridges across there, is that would help kind of divert the water or direct the water into this lower section. So anything that kind of works its way on the top, it drops through, and then it works its way down. So since I haven't seen this one work in action before, I've never installed it, I can't say a whole lot about it. So we'll just kind of call this our outlier, or one of our outliers here, and we'll see how it performs over time. This is on the south roof slope, and it's at this point, it made its way through a rainstorm last night, and obviously you don't really see anything on top of it. So whatever may have rolled off the roof or washed off the roof last night has continued to come off the guard, other than a few granules here and there. This is LeafFree. It's a solid gutter cover. It's designed to screw down on the front lip, as you can see here, and then it has a panel that slides up underneath the first course of shingles. It can work with both 5 and 6 inch gutters with no problem. Because it's a solid panel, this is a technology that was first developed in 1908. So this technology has been around for 112 years. That's at least when the first patent was put on it in 1908. This is a product that we've represented for the last 10 years or so. And for folks that are looking for a solid gutter cover, this is a pretty good system. One of the reasons I like it is because it's a simple installation process. A lot of the gutter guards, whether it's a gutter helmet or some other sort of gutter helmet-esque type systems, if they're standalone, so they're not a one-piece system like you would get with a leaf guard, you can install it on any existing gutters. So that's the good news about it. And because this is a single piece of aluminum that gets roll formed out, this front area here is actually affixed to the main portion of the gutter guard, the main panel, and a series of attachments. So there are a bunch of slots through here that allow the water to go through, and then every few inches or so, 3 inches maybe, there's a piece of metal that kind of creates the connector. So if you see there, you can see those connectors. So it's a relatively straightforward panel to install. It has a male-female connector on it, so each end interlocks to the next. In this case, since we just have one panel up here, we've put end caps on both sides of it just to prevent any leaves and debris from skirting in on the side. You can also see that this one has a series of weep holes, so this upper line of defense serves two purposes. If you have slow-moving water coming, just kind of trickling off the edge of the shingles, if your shingle is behind that weep hole, then it can act as the first line of defense. If the shingle overlaps the weep holes, it will prevent water from wicking back upwards and going up under the shingles. So it's a good design system. It's a product that's a U.S.-made product out of Omaha, Nebraska, and overall it's a product that we've had good success with. With that said, we install very little solid gutter cover these days. I personally believe that the market has kind of moved beyond that, and the fact that you see this opening across the front, that is an opportunity for anything that's smaller than that hole opening to get inside that hole opening. So that's been one of the issues with these products. If you have small debris off of pine trees or locust trees or oak trees, the tassels that come off of oak trees, or any small leaves and debris, that stuff can either potentially get inside that opening or it can potentially clog up that opening, and we've seen case after case where that's occurred. So the good test for this product is it's on a steep sloped roof, 12 pitch roof, so it's going to get its work out. Again, we just installed this one 24 hours ago. We had a good rainstorm last night, and you can see the cover has just got a few shingle granules sitting on top of it, and you can see the weep holes and retaining a little water in there, so you can kind of see how that system works. The gutter guards have been up for, I would say, about a month at this point. What I'm looking forward to is over the next few weeks to a month, we should be getting more of the stuff off the maples, the helicopters off the maples, the oak tassels off the oak trees.